Ivanti has released urgent updates to fix 10 critical vulnerabilities in their Endpoint Manager, including one with a maximum CVSS score of 10.0 that allows remote code execution, emphasizing the need for immediate user action to prevent potential attacks. And in a similar vein, Microsoft has also patched 79 security flaws on this most recent Patch Tuesday, including 3 already being exploited. How do these newly identified Windows security vulnerabilities get exploited, and what immediate actions should users take to secure their systems? Researchers have discovered that the notorious Lazarus Group is now luring unsuspecting software developers with fake coding tests to spread malware. And finally, another researcher recently exploited a rogue WHOIS server to generate fake HTTPS certificates and track email activity, exposing the fragility of internet trust systems, and all it took was $20 and a few minutes of effort. Learn about this and more as you continue listening to the Daily Decrypt. Ivanti has just released urgent security updates for their Endpoint Manager, addressing multiple critical vulnerabilities. The most severe has a CVSS score of 10.0 and allows remote code execution by deserializing untrusted data. Another 9 vulnerabilities, which are mainly SQL injection, also pose serious risks with CVSS scores of 9.1 each. These flaws that were recently patched affect the Endpoint Manager versions 2024 and 2022 SUS and earlier. To stay safe, update to versions 2024 SU1 or 2022 SU6 immediately. Although Ivanti reports no evidence of exploitation in the wild, delaying updates could expose your systems to potential threats. Additionally, Ivanti's September update addresses 7 high-severity issues in workspace control and cloud service appliance. The company has ramped up its internal scanning and testing capabilities, enhancing its responsible disclosure process to catch and fix issues faster. This surge in vulnerability discovery follows recent zero-day exploits by cyber espionage groups, including those linked to China. Also, Zyxel issued fixes for a critical command injection flaw in their NAS devices, each for CVEs with a score of 9.8. And while we're talking about updates and patches, the recurring Microsoft Patch Tuesday just happened, and they updated and patched 79 different flaws, included 3 that are actively exploited vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are as follows. There's a Windows installer elevation of privilege vulnerability with a score of 7.8. There's a Microsoft Publisher security feature bypass with a score of 7.3. And Windows Mark of the Web security feature bypass with a score of 5.4. These vulnerabilities can allow attackers to bypass crucial security features, especially in Microsoft Office. And for example, the Mark of the Web with a score of 5.4 is if it's exploited, it can disable security features that prevent malicious macros from running, which has been happening since 2018. Similarly, the publisher vulnerability requires local access, but still poses significant risks. So as always, if you're a Microsoft user or an administrator for a Microsoft enterprise, make sure that you roll out these updates as soon as possible so that these vulnerabilities don't get exploited in your environment. Because remember, now that these vulnerabilities have been patched, attackers are going to be extra vigilant looking for systems that haven't been updated yet. They have all the details they need to exploit these systems, and now is a crucial time to make sure you update. So we've talked about updates, we've talked about patches and vulnerabilities. Well, now we're moving into the research part of the episode where security researchers just uncovered a new scheme by the infamous Lazarus Group. Yes, they're back from the dead. They're using fake coding tests to spread malware to software developers. Here's how it works, all right? There's a fake job interview where they lure developers. So here's how it works. The Lazarus Group lures developers in with fake job interviews, usually pushed through LinkedIn. Then, as expected in job interviews, they do coding assessments, right? Well, these specific coding assessments are embedded with malware and then published on reputable libraries like NPM or the Python package index, where the malware hides in modified versions of legitimate libraries such as Paperclip or PyRebase, that if you saw this on a coding assessment and you were importing these packages, you would not think twice. And the kicker to all of this, which is something that you can always look out for, is the sense of urgency that these job interviewers put on you. They're sending you these coding tests with very tight deadlines, like a couple hours to maybe a whole day, so that you don't do your due diligence in checking out these packages, which, I don't know if I would either. And especially in today's tech job market with layoffs and a surge in talent and a reduction in jobs, job seekers are getting more and more desperate. And they're putting out so many applications that they don't have even the time to do their due diligence. And I really feel for job seekers right now. It totally sucks because, in my opinion, the job market and job application processes is a hugely vulnerable vector for malicious actors to slip in, because a lot of it is unverified. It goes through third-party recruiting firms that no one's ever heard of. And there's also that sense of desperation that attackers can prey on, right? And so there desperately needs to be some sort of system created that validates both the employee who's applying for these jobs and the recruiting firm that is recruiting for these jobs, which can drastically help reduce this type of scam, and also the type of scam where, North Korean or Russian hackers are getting hired in at these firms and then become insider threats. And, a simple background check isn't going to cut it. So if you're a developer and you're applying for jobs, be extra careful, especially when downloading code or running code that was provided for you. Honestly, that should throw up some red flags, because every coding interview that I've been a part of, it's done on Zoom during the interview in a sanitized IDE where you're just coding in front of them, because they're not actually looking for your ability to code. They're looking for your ability to problem solve, and they want to see how you're working through problems, right? So just if they have coding tasks, especially if you can take them offline, because why would that even be effective as an interviewer, right? You could just feed that to ChatGPT and it could provide a response for you, which would be better than downloading the code itself. So if you're asked to download code and do coding tasks on your own time, that should trigger some red flags. And finally, imagine having control over 76,000 IP addresses, tracking emails, and even issuing counterfeit HTTPS certificates, all for the price of a pizza, a discounted pizza, mind you. That's precisely what happened to security researcher Benjamin Harris, founder of WatchTowr, after he registered a forgotten domain, .mobyregistry.net. So what's the tech behind this? The .moby.whois server, which serves as the directory for all .moby domains, moved from whois.mobyregistry.net to whois.moby. Nobody updated their systems, still querying the old server. Harris noticed this and bought the expired domain and set up his own Whois server. Within hours, his rogue server received millions of queries from major entities like domain registrars, security providers, and even governments, which gave him unprecedented access to sensitive operations. And so for those who put in requests to this domain registrar, this compromised server could lead to counterfeit certificates, data breaches, and more, which just underscores the fragility of our trust in outdated systems. And to be honest, as an end user, there's not much you can do because most of this happens behind the scenes. It's just a story and a demonstration about how simple errors down the supply chain from you can cause serious security risks. I'm not entirely sure why this server's domain was updated in the first place, but it definitely should have been considered to maybe keep purchasing that old domain, not let it go up to public domain, and maybe sending out some email mass blasts, which they probably did, but still, making sure and testing to see who is still querying that old server. So many things could have been done with just a simple name change. So many security vulnerabilities were introduced.
This has been the Daily Decrypt. If you found your key to unlocking the digital domain, show your support with a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It truly helps us stand at the frontier of cyber news. Don't forget to connect on Instagram or catch our episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep your data safe and your curiosity alive.